Most serial killers share a predictable desperation. They want to remain invisible. They hunt in the shadows, meticulously scrub crime scenes, and do everything in their power to evade the police. But in 1968 and 1969, a string of murders across Northern California inverted that entire psychology. This attacker actively demanded the spotlight. He gave himself a menacing moniker. He sent taunting, anonymous letters directly to investigators and local press, threatening further violence if editors didn't print his messages on their front pages. Investigators possessed the elements that typically secure a conviction: surviving witnesses, physical evidence, handwritten confessions, and a persistent prime suspect. This disconnect between the volume of available evidence and the lack of a confirmed name has sustained the investigation for over 50 years, resulting in one of the most documented failures in American law enforcement. The violence began in quiet, isolated areas. In December 1968, 2 teenagers were shot and killed while parked on the secluded Lake Herman Road. 7 months later, another young couple was attacked at Blue Rock Springs Park. That second attack yielded what should have been a massive break for the authorities. One of the victims survived the gunfire, giving police a direct physical description of the shooter. The brutality escalated a few months later near Lake Berryessa. Another couple was stabbed, and again, one victim survived. This time, they reported the attacker wore a bizarre executioner-style hood featuring a distinct crosshair symbol stitched over the chest. The killer was brazen enough to pick up a payphone just 1 hour after the Blue Rock Springs shooting, calling the police department himself to claim responsibility for both sets of murders. Typically, multiple surviving eyewitnesses and direct contact with the police provide the leverage for an arrest. Here, the testimony and descriptions only added layers to the investigative fog. Realizing the terror he could induce remotely, the killer shifted his strategy from rural violence to psychological warfare. On August 1, 1969, he mailed identical letters to 3 major newspapers. Inside each envelope was a fraction of a 408-character cipher, used as a hostage tactic to force publication. A local teacher and his wife cracked it in days. The translated text revealed a delusion that he was collecting victims for the afterlife, but it lacked the one piece of information the police actually wanted. The message contained absolutely zero identifying data. Decades later, a team of international codebreakers used modern computing to decipher another of his famous messages in 2020. They hit the exact same dead end. The ciphers functioned as a form of misdirection. They kept investigators busy analyzing symbols, giving them the illusion of progress while shielding the man holding the pen. The threat level spiked in September 1969. The killer murdered taxi driver Paul Stein, abandoning secluded rural parks for a dense, heavily populated San Francisco neighborhood. To prove his proximity and guilt, the attacker tore a piece of Stein's blood-soaked shirt from the crime scene. He then mailed fragments of that fabric to local papers, leaving undeniable physical proof in the hands of the media. Over the ensuing decades, police investigated thousands of suspects. One man, Arthur Lee Allen, emerged as the most heavily scrutinized target. Allen wore a Zodiac brand watch, owned the same caliber weapons, and was identified by a victim. Yet the circumstantial evidence never met the threshold required to arrest him. Decades later, investigators turned to modern forensic technology to close the loop. But advanced DNA testing on the saliva from the stamps and envelopes failed to produce a definitive match to Allen or to anyone else. It highlights a frustrating reality in criminal justice. An overwhelming surplus of physical evidence and high-profile suspects can sometimes paralyze an investigation, creating a web of dead ends rather than a path to conviction. More than 50 years after the first shots were fired, the case file remains officially unconfirmed. Attacker's media strategy succeeded. He achieved the sustained public visibility he demanded. Barring a future breakthrough in forensic technology, the killer's meticulous attention to public perception has ensured his mystery outlived the investigation itself. The Zodiac Killer proves a chilling reality. With enough theatrical manipulation and carefully calculated misdirection, a killer can hide in plain sight forever.